womb of a woman with child, so you do not know the work of God who makes everything. In the morning sow your seed, and at evening withhold not your hand, for you do not know which will prosper, this or that, or whether both alike will be good. Light is sweet, and it is pleasant for the eyes to see the sun. So if a person lives many years, let him rejoice in them all. But let him remember that the days of darkness will be many. All that comes is vanity. Rejoice, O man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart and the sight of your eyes. But know that for all these things God will bring you into judgment. Remove vexation from your heart and put away pain from your body, for youth and the dawn of life are vanity. Remember also your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come, and the years draw near of which you will say, I have no pleasure in them. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars are darkened and the clouds return to the rain, in the day when the keepers of the house tremble, and the strong men are bent, and the grinders cease because they are few, and those who look through the windows are dimmed, and the doors on the street are shut. When the sound of the grinding is low, and one rises up at the sound of a bird, and all the daughters of song are brought low. They are afraid also of what is high, and terrors are in the way. The almond tree blossoms, the grasshopper drags itself along, and desire fails because man is going to his eternal home, and the mourners go about the streets. Before the silver cord is snapped, or the golden bowl is broken, or the pitcher is shattered at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern, and the dust returns to the earth as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. And that's it from the preacher. This is the last section that we get direct speech from Kohelet. We've been listening to him serenade us now for the past several weeks and several chapters, and then he's landing the plane at this point. So I think the question, I just want to jump right into it, is he's answering this for the final time. So after everything that he has taught us, all the lessons, all the anecdotes, all the back and forth, sometimes the contradictions, all of these things, he finally just lands on, how should we live? And you know, when you think about a guy giving a speech or a lady giving a speech or a lecture, you figure that you kind of want to pack the punch toward the very end. You don't want to, I think they call it burying the lead, but you want to build up to kind of this ultimate crescendo or end point at the end of the sermon or the end of the lecture. And usually what is said at the end of a big speech or a long sermon is the most important, or the one that he wants us to, it's going to be the last thing we remember walking away from the gathering, is we're surrounded by, we're in a crowd, we're listening to this wise old man or young man or cynical man, doesn't really say, we just have clues, and we're just left with, how should we live? So what? That's the so what value of every time I come, when we teach the Bible, what does this mean? How should we walk away from this changed? And so that's what I think he's answering for us here in very poetic, abstruse language. Admittedly, if you think that Solomon was the one who wrote the book, and that is a valid possibility, this is when Solomon sounds the most Solomon-y. When he just uses these images that you can legitimately interpret multiple different ways and try to guess, what did he mean by the grinders are low, or the well is broken at the cistern, and all of these things. But it's these imageries that we'll talk about, that at the end of the day, there are three main things to live well, practically speaking, in this world. And we'll tackle them in three settings. So I broke it up in terms of three major buckets. You see action. So in chapters 11, 1 through 7, or chapter 11, verses 1 through 7, he's giving us direct advice for how to do some stuff. And we'll get into whatever that stuff is, because again, it's a lot of imagery. There's action, there's attitude, and there's perspective. And that's kind of how I kind of break this down. But we always seem to run out of time at the end, so I'm going to try and limit the setup early. So let's jump right in. How should one live well after ingesting all of this information, all of this wisdom, and this is it. Next week we're going to go back to the frame narrator, the guy that started. He was talking to his son, and so we We know that chapters 1 through 10, chapters 1, verses 1 through 10 to 12:7 are essentially what we get from the preacher. So we get into these images of casting one's bread on the water, giving a portion, clouds are full, falling trees, etc. So we'll go through this and then hopefully have some good discussion as we go along the way. So we'll jump right in, verses 1 and 2. Cast your bread upon the waters, and you will find it after many days. Give a portion to 7 or even to 8, for you do not know what disaster may happen on earth. So how should we live? We'll just go right through it. Be generous and open-handed. This idea, this image of casting bread upon the water, multiple different views. And one thing I'm going to really try on this lesson to avoid is bogging us down with all of the powerful brain thoughts of smarter people that try to make sense of this. And we'll keep it deep enough in to where it makes sense, but hopefully high enough to where we're not, trying to be a seminary class or something silly like that. So casting bread upon the water, you have a couple options. You could take it literally, like you're literally throwing bread on the water. It gets soggy, it soaks, and maybe you'll get it back. And it's like, what does that mean? But the idea also is this could refer to maritime trade. So, ancient Near East setting, be industrious, go out, do multiple ventures, go and attempt multiple enterprises in life because you don't actually know what's going to return back. Or it could be charity. It could be good works. It could just let your good works flow liberally, and then if you get a return in this life, great, might be in the next life. But it's just these overarching ideas of being open-handed with whatever resources you have and letting wherever it drops just happen. So this picture of give a portion to 7 or even to 8 because you do not know the disaster that may happen on earth. How should we live? We should live generously. We should live open-handed. We should not live clinging to whatever it is, our resources, our stuff, our time. We should be free and open with whatever it is, whatever our lot and our portion in life is. And we'll get into it because there's definitely some overplay. Don't overthink life. And I think this is wisdom literature. This isn't prescriptive literature. So it's a very strongly held suggestion on how it is best to live life. But if you choose to do it, great. If you choose not to do it, then you're a fool. In his language, not mine. Maybe my language a little bit, but because you have a wise, just in real life we know this. If somebody who has seen more years, if you're a young person and an older person gives you advice on something, you could be like, you crazy old man, you don't know what you're talking about. And it's like, well, that's a silly way to live life. So this is wisdom. It's giving us a paradigm of living. And so and we're faced with these options all of the time, whether it's in individual acts of charity, whether it's in what career will I pursue. At the end of the day, it is a better way to live life, generous and pushing our efforts toward the betterment of the broader society, the community in which we live, whether it's a church, a family, a neighborhood. But it's like, well, I don't know if I should do that nice thing. Should I give that guy a lift? Should I give $10 to the person on the corner? No, I don't think I should because they're probably just scamming me. You do this overthink, and then you just become stingy. And it's not to say that if you don't give something nice to everybody that you passes you by. There's definite parameters to all of these things. But it's that idea that don't be so conservative and so budget-oriented and task-oriented that you just withhold what it is that God has given us to bless others with, the flourishing of life. So that idea of don't overthink, I get that from verse 3. If the clouds are full of rain and they empty themselves on the earth, and if a tree falls to the north or the south, wherever it falls, that's where it's going to be. There's inevitability. There's just things that will happen. So again, that overthinking, and we'll get into this, but I think there's a certain personality of individual out there that gets so paralyzed by analysis that they never actually do anything. And so it's like, should I do this? Is this a good time? The economy's kind of meh. Maybe it'll pick up. Well, should I plan to do that missions trip? I don't know. Next year, the gas prices, whatever the rationale we get, and then you just spin, and then nothing actually ever happens. But there's a freedom to be felt in, there's just inevitabilities in life that you cannot control. So don't be paralyzed by what you can't control or what you can't minutely map out, and just do things. So this is a limited framework. Like, how does this work in every aspect of life? I can't answer that in this moment, but it's just a framework. Whatever context you find yourself in, should I do this job change? Should I raise my kids? Should I send my kids to this school? Should I do any number of things? There is a point where just take action, because there is an inevitability to life where life is just going to happen whether or not you decide to get on board with it or not. And there's a randomness to life. Sometimes trees just fall. And it falls this way, it falls that way. We can't control the way it falls. Sometimes the winds of prosperity flow in this direction, and sometimes it's a headwind. But don't overthink life. And again, we can, if we wanted to zoom further out, we can understand how he can say these things, because he's been spending so much time explaining how hevel life is, how enigmatic and paradoxical life can be, how the things that should work out often don't. The wrong people get the promotion, the good people tend to get dragged down, but then sometimes you make a lot of money but you can't enjoy it. Like, he's been building this case up into this point where it's just like, if you're sitting there going, there's too much information and I can't keep up with him. Here's some basic parameters. Just, as Augustine said, love God and do what you want. That kind of an idea. Be proactive versus passive. He who observes the wind will not sow, and he who regards the clouds will not reap. And again, this plays right into my personality type, because I am an overthinker. And so it's like, should I do this thing today? Well, it could rain. Well, is it raining right now? No, but it could. So maybe I should stay home. Or, I'm really sad about that hailstorm yesterday, but that's neither here nor there. But my poor pumpkins are not doing well. Thoughts and prayers. But just plant. Like, Amy and I are not great gardeners. We try. And so we follow the instructions. It's the time of year. But it's a little too dry today. Maybe we shouldn't plant. No, just do it. Because if you always wait for the opportune time to act on something, you'll never act. Because there's never going to be a perfect time to do something. So young people, it's like, what college should I go to? What life degree should I pursue? Just pick something, and right now, do it to the best of your ability to honor God. And chances are, whatever you go to college or whatever your electives you take in high school, you might end up doing something totally different 10 years from now, and that's totally fine. But love God, obey him, but just take action. Don't just sit there and just agonize. Because I remember, when I was in high school, it was like, do I have a Bible degree? Do I want to be a history teacher? Do I want to do this? Do I want to go to state? And all of these things. And it doesn't change with age, but do something. Don't just look at the sky constantly, wait for all the circumstances and puzzle pieces to drop into place. Sometimes you just have to take action and trust that the Lord is good and he will guide you along. Which on that point, know your limitations. Verse 5. You can observe the wind, by the way, and you can regard the clouds, but you actually don't know what's going to happen. No more than you know how a baby is knit together in the womb of a mother. And you do not know the work of God who makes everything. So again, all of that paralysis and all that frustration that sometimes we can just put on ourselves, all that pressure to make a good decision, to be wise, like, should I buy this item, or should I buy the slightly cheaper item because it's more budget friendly but it might break sooner? Just get the tiller, till the grass. If it grows, it grows. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But don't just sit there and just try to analyze everything to an absurd degree, because at the end of the day, you really don't know anything, and neither do I. And it's easy to say, yeah, obviously. But how often do we live that way? And that's what wisdom is confronting us with. How often do we, should I, here's one that hits home a little more, but should I witness to that person right now? It's bad weather, it's really hot outside. I don't want to stand in the sun. I'm sure they don't either. But I feel led that maybe I should greet that person or say hello at the grocery store. Or encounter that person at the soccer field and ask them, where do they go to church? No, it's not a good time. There's a game going on. It's going to rain soon. And we just allow ourselves to analyze ourselves out of action, and in some cases even obedience, which we'll see, because our way of living is going to be judged. And that's covered here in a couple verses. So know your limitations. You don't know everything. Work hard and trust God. In the morning, sow your seed. At night, withhold not your hand. You don't know what will prosper. You don't know if anything will prosper. This or that, either could be good. So go work wherever God has you, wherever you are, be planted. And in a transient American society where we have mobility and we have technology now, I think that idea is really under attack, to grow where one is planted. So it's really easy, I'm going to take this job, or I'm going to go to this school, or I'm going to make this investment. And as soon as there's just a little bit of ambiguity or pressure, it's like, no, I'm out. Like, I'm going to go do this job. God has called me now to be a museum curator. Nope, museum industry is not doing great. I'm going to go be a weatherman or whatever. But speaking way too personally right now. But it's just that idea where you're always so, and this is just wisdom, and this is ancient literature, but isn't it so relevant to our current age, where it's just all this angst because of the idea that grass is greener somewhere else. That if only I do X, Y, Z, and it'll have this output, then I'll be happy. And again, this is accumulation. If we were doing Ecclesiastes as one sit-down book, we would still have chapters 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ringing in our ears as we hear about the futility of trying to find ultimate meaning in things that we can't find ultimate meaning in. And so it's, again, wherever you are, whatever job you have. Well, I don't like this job. Well, it's the job you have right now. Maybe you can find a better one in the future, but for right now, do everything as hard as you can for the glory of God. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, God is still good. But don't die by paralysis by analysis and just constantly be struggling with, what do I want to do when I grow up? I still make that joke. I get into one-on-one meetings, whether at work or personal, and it's like, what are you thinking about this week? It's like, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. But it's true. I do still think about, what do I want to be when I grow up? Because I feel like my job isn't giving me everything that it should give me. My family, I want to provide and I want to set them up for forever, and I want to do all of these things. And yet am I actually thriving where God has said, in my sovereignty, I've placed you here in this circumstance, work hard and let the crumbs fall where they will. And trust me that I'm still good. It's hard. But one option that we don't have leaving wisdom is to do nothing. So you either can reject it. I guess you can do nothing. But if you actually want to thrive within it, how then should we live? Christians, I think, should be some of the most positively minded, optimistic, but in reality, hardest working people you know. Should be. Because again, we understand the limits of our work, the limits of satisfaction, but we still have this imperative to work hard and to make a good life. At no point does Kohelet say, the poor person is more noble than the rich person. Things along those lines. So again, there's a proper action to be had. There's a proper attitude. Nope, wrong button. Verses 7, light is sweet and it is pleasant for the eyes to see. There's going to be a major theme that we're going to run into, and there wasn't a great way of breaking this out. But we are going to hit a passage where you're going to see a lot of R words, but the big ones are remember and rejoice. There's two, chapter 12 starts with remember, and verse 9, rejoice. And then I believe, I must have hit that part. We'll get there. Verse 8, sorry. If a person lives many years, let him rejoice in them all, but let him remember that the days of darkness. This theme, rejoice, remember, is going to be how Kohelet finishes it out. So that's where I get the attitude from. Rejoice. Have joy in life. So again, remember the first part. Don't just sit looking out the window wondering, what should I do today? Go do something. Go do something that you enjoy, but go do something that can bring glory to God. But don't just sit around ho-humming the circumstances of life, ho-humming the gas prices and the economy. I'm never going to go anywhere or do anything because this world is blah, and it is what it is. So I'm just going to sit in my room or sit in my office and just kind of watch the leaves turn every year and be depressed. Not the way that we should leave this section and this book. So light is sweet. Verse 7, and it is pleasant for the eyes to see the sun. Again, we're going to get into this motif real quick about age. If you can still see a good sunset, if you can still see a good sunrise, if you can still see the output of a beautiful creation, enjoy those things. Don't take those things for granted. Because at some point, your eyes are going to start dimming. Your up and atom feeling of going on adventures is going to diminish. And and that's perfectly fine. But while you have the ability, enjoy the light of the sun. It is sweet. Verses 8, if a person lives many years, let him rejoice in those years. But let him remember that the days of darkness will be many. All that comes is vanity. And I think in that setting, vanity actually probably does more accurately refer to the mist and vapor that is just there and gone. But as you have sight, as you can enjoy life, as you have years to live, enjoy those years. But keep them in perspective. If you're young right now, you'll probably hear your parents or people you trust say, stop wasting your time. You're sitting in your bedroom all day, on your phone, or you're sitting, playing video games. And not that there's anything wrong with those things, but in its course, but you're wasting time. And it's no, I don't. I have plenty of time. I'm only 18. There's years of life ahead of me. It's you just don't know that. And so it's while you have this life, enjoy, make the most of it. Enjoy your youth. You're going to hear that a lot in the next couple verses. Rejoice, O young man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart in the sight of your eyes, but for all of these things, God will bring you into judgment. So again, enjoy your youth. And I'm going to make this point a couple times maybe. He doesn't delineate at what point you stop becoming a youth and thus become old. So talking to a wide range here, I just see a bunch of young people. Amen. I know how to live for the next day. But that's the idea. Well, it's too late for me. Well, okay, so maybe you're not as spry as you were in your 20s. I do one athletic thing for 5 minutes, and I'm hurting now for 3 days, and that was never on the agenda sheet. I was only always supposed to be invincible. But age comes. But while you have these years, enjoy them. And again, is the cutoff 30? Is it 40? Is it 18? Kohelet doesn't give us that information. So if you are still on the lifespan, maybe more towards the end than the beginning, that still doesn't preclude you from these directives to enjoy what you can enjoy. To even in your older years or your younger years, you can still be susceptible to paranoia, stinginess, frustration, clinginess, and not being open-handed with your time, your energy, your wisdom, many of those things. So enjoy. When it says here, rejoice, O man, walk in the ways of your heart, the sight of your eyes. I honestly think it's just as easy as do what you enjoy as long as it glorifies God and is God honoring. There's this idea that still pervades that, there's the spiritual jobs and activities, and then there's everything else. So there's Joel and Matt and the elders. They're the super Christians. They're the ones that, it's their job to be awesome Christians. And so God obviously looks with more favor on, the Sunday school teachers, the pastors, the preachers. I'm just a logistics coordinator, so, there's nothing special about that. No. If you have a task, if you're good at it, if God has given you the ability to somewhat enjoy it, do it with all your might to the glory of God. There isn't this idea that one thing is more Christian than the other thing. Now, there's obvious things in the world that are just objectively wrong. But there's also just a wisdom around, I want to be an engineer, but I feel like I have to be a pastor because that's what, good Christian people do. Go to Bible college. That's my upbringing. Um, but maybe there's nothing wrong with being an engineer. There's nothing wrong with being a pastor. And as long as you are doing those things properly and in their right order, I believe God is honored. But do remember the end of that verse. Know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment. What are those things? Is he basically saying have a good time, but then the bill comes and God's going to be like, hey, I told you to have fun. I told you to go do the job you enjoy, be an artist, be a musician, everything. But then I'm going to zing you at the end because you didn't do the right thing, and now you're in judgment. I mean, that is one possible reading. I don't think it's the right reading. But I think ultimately, all these things refers back to everything we just talked about. How did we enjoy life that God gave us? How did we enjoy and leverage and use the resources he gave us? And isn't it a weird thought? Like, I think accurately, there should be a healthy fear of God that says at the end of time, we are going to be called into account, all the imagery that we see in the New Testament, things like that. But has it ever really occurred to us that God might hold us to account to, why were you such a miserable curmudgeon in my good world? Like, why were you so anxious all the time, John? Like a father gives a gift, or a parent gives a gift to their kid, and the kid never, out of anxiety of scratching the toy or damaging the box or losing a piece of the Lego, they never actually open the toy and enjoy it. How does that make you feel as a parent? I gave you this thing to have fun with and to leverage and use for enjoyment, and you kept it in the box the whole time, and now it's antiquated. There's nothing cool about it anymore. Give it 20 years, it'll be cool again. You can sell it on eBay. But it's that idea, we have been given this life, whatever span of life you have. And I do think there's a quote in here, in a suggestively beautiful essay. This is David Gibson talking, and he's quoting another guy named Doug Jones. Argues that Christian cultures have failed throughout church history, not primarily because of insufficient theological education or poor doctrine or inadequate evangelism or weak leadership, but because of a lack of joy. And so it's interesting, isn't it? We are going to be called into account at some point, someday. How well did you enjoy my gifts? Well, God, I didn't like them. It doesn't matter. Go back to a few chapters back. Wherever your lot or portion is, that is where your stewardship lies. So enjoy life. Have some cheer. Enjoy a good meal once in a while. Maybe not all the time. But if your life is only Arby's or McDonald's, sorry, or the true Mexican food, Taco Bell, no, go and get a good meal. Go get real cuisine for a while. Enjoy life. And it's just an analogy. I'm not saying go be frivolous, but I think we get the point of what the preacher is saying. And I'm speaking confessionally, I fall into this bucket way too often of just always being weighed down with the what ifs and the ambiguity of life to never actually enjoy watching my kids grow up. I'm so anxious about, well, what are we going to do next year for school? Or what are we going to do for this? Or what if my job does X, Y, Z? But in the moment, enjoy your kids. In the moment, enjoy your grown kids. Enjoy your friends if that's the stage of life that you're in. But we are going to be called into account for that. And that's an interesting, again, I think we think about, I'm going to get called into account for all the sin I did and all the times I didn't witness when I should have witnessed and all of these things. But no, it's what if the first thing Jesus said up there is why were you so miserable down there? It's a possibility. Avoid frustrations, verse 10. Remove vexation from your heart, put away pain from your body. This one's easy enough to understand. There are going to be frustrations, and this word vexation can be anything from agitation, frustration, evil. If you're in this again, we could hear the first few verses and say, well, I'm just, if I'm in a lousy, toxic work environment, I'm just supposed to stay in it. To the glory of God, yay. No, again, it's all in balance, it's all wisdom. So there's you chew on it and you think about it. But at the end of the day, if you're in there's nothing wrong with looking for ways to better one's life. So if you're in a toxic job, I used to manage a McDonald's. Um, Never going back, hopefully, but I still have PTSD that I might end up back there. Um, but it's not bad to say I need to find a better job than this. So remove pain and frustration as you can. Now we know we're in a broken world, there's nothing perfect. So there's no perfect job out there, there's no perfect college decision or major out there, there's no perfect spouse out there. So don't hear remove pain and frustration. That's not, no, that doesn't, hear me, that's not your kids or your family or things like that. Let's bring the whole of Scripture into the council here. But it's okay. Hey, I'm just not thriving here in whatever circumstance I'm in. And I'm going to work every day as unto the Lord, or I'm going to live every day as unto the Lord. But you know what? If another opportunity comes, it's okay to take that. Well, what if it doesn't work out? Again, you can't know everything. But you can't always wait for perfect weather to make a perfect decision. But it's okay. Take a leap of faith. Maybe go to that new job. Maybe go to that new location. It's not bad. Again, all within the whole framework of Scripture. Don't just be like, well, honey, we're not. Then we get to the fun one, perspective. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth before the evil days come. And then we get 7 verses that basically are very symbolic pictures and representations of old age and death. So again, how to live well, be proactive, take action, have a proper attitude, rejoice and enjoy the world that God has put you in. That's okay. He actually expects it. And then, but keep it all in perspective. Because someday the lights will dim, someday the joints will break down, and you will be in old age. And then you will be dead. Pretty matter of fact, so I'm not going to sugarcoat a whole lot, but all of this imagery, remember your Creator in the days of your youth, and then there's 3 very obvious structural categories, and it's earmarked by the word before. So remember your Creator before X, before Y, before Z. So it's a very clear, just linguistic or grammatical structure. And so what are those things that we are to remember before? Remember your frailty. The days of darkness are coming, and youth and vigor, they're hevel. They're going to go. They're going to disappear. They're going to dissipate. And one day, you're going to be like, I am young. I have all the world ahead of me. And you are going to wake up and say, it is a little too late. I waited too long on that. That one passed me by. Should I marry that spouse? Or should I ask that girl out? Or whatever the case might be. And it's like, and there's another illustration that just works really well with that picture. But you like somebody in college and you're like, I should go ask her out. And then somebody else asks her out and you're like, oh no. But because you were waiting for the perfect time. Anyways. But one day, it will be too late in life. One day, it will be the end. And so while you're young, while you have the capabilities and the functions to be able to enjoy life as it comes to you, enjoy those things. But do remember, the evil days are coming, and the years will draw near of which you will say, I have no pleasure in them. There is going to come a time that thing you love more than anything else to do, that food you love more than anything else, at some point might start to taste bland. I can't imagine loving, I love the Broncos or the Astros or whatever sports team or pastime you like, and it's like, oh, I could watch them all the time. And there's just going to come a point where you're like, yeah, this is lame, I've seen it before, and you're going to want to turn it off. There's got to be something more meaningful. But all those things that we took pleasure in, both in a physical sense and in a life sense, will start to lose their shine. And I'm not in those categories. I'm still very young. No, by comparison, although I did turn 40, so maybe not anymore. But in my brain, it's I will enjoy all these things, but there's just going to be diminished everything. I'm not going to hear as well. I'm not going to see as well. The back pain is going to linger much longer than it should. Physical drive will drop. Weight will probably be a little easier to keep on and much harder to keep off. So as remember these things. Keep these things in perspective. And more than anything, that should motivate us to want to live those first two things out even better. Because we know that there's a timestamp on this, and it's going to end. So we have the befores. So before old age, verses 2 through 5, there are just reams of paper that are and ink spilt on what does it mean when we talk about strong men being bent, the grinders are ceasing. You look through the windows, but they're dim. There's at least 4 legitimate ways that you can approach this text, but it all kind of drives at the same thing. It drives at the depreciation and deprecation that comes with old age, whether at a societal level, in a family level, in a body level. So if you think that the grinders are teeth, that's perfectly fair. And it actually works with the text. But then in the old days, grinders were the people that were grinding the grain to make the food for the feast. And so at the end, I don't want to spend too much time because this one is, pages and just too much. And I'm not trying to skip. So if you're like, no, John, we really want to break down what the doors are in verse 4. I'm not going to jump too much into that, but at the end of the day, it's very clear. Remember your Creator before the days of evil, when the things that you enjoyed so passionately start to lose their shine, or your physical ability to enjoy those diminish, and then old age comes. So we see these pictures. The lights are darkened. Before, light was beautiful. You could see the stars. You could enjoy a good sunrise, but then your vision's going to go down. And you're not going to be able to see those things anymore. Or the things around you are just going to get old and worn down. And Christmas Village, that used to be so bright and festive, just seems really drear, and the colors are muted, and everything's just kind of bland. We go down. Some of these they're really cool. Like, look through the windows that are dimmed. The grinders cease. The doors are shut. One rises up at the sound of a bird. So, don't sleep well anymore. Man, I really struggle to sleep. I wake up at everything. I don't like doing things anymore. I'm afraid of heights. That's a weird one in we got that in verse 5. They are afraid of what is high. There are terrors in the way. Again, just as you age, I don't need to explain old age. We're all living it at a various stage and point in time. But, I used to love to do 14ers. I don't even go up into the mountains anymore. I don't like steps. It's something I hear a lot now with my in-laws and others. And it's just like, again, why is that? Well, I don't want to fall. And it's, there is nothing but respect and dignity for every stage of life. There's Bible verses for days on how to respect and honor the older people in your life. So this is not throwing shade at old age. So I hope that doesn't come out in any stretch. But it's just a fact of life that we should live well. We should remember that our days are short. We're not even guaranteed to get to old age. And so it's like, remember your Creator and rejoice in His creation while you have the ability to do so. And then death. We see death here at the very end in verses 6 and 7. The silver cord is snapped, the golden bowl is broken, the pitcher is shattered at the fountain. The most common image I found for this depicts like a candle that's in a nice bowl that's being suspended by a rope, and then it, as it ages and breaks down, it shatters and is gone. So again, very poetic, Solomon-y type language, and you can take it figuratively, allegorically, but at the end of the day, it's death. So remember your Creator in the days of evil, before old age, and before death. And that's it from him. We really have hit the end of his encouragement and challenge to us. And there's just one thought before I leave this section is, I think it's interesting that you don't see too many references in Ecclesiastes to God as creator. And so why does he pick this image now is to remind us once again that we are created things. And as created things, at some point, we are going to go back to the dust. We are going to turn over the divine breath that he has loaned to us. And we are going to die. But while we're here, we are expected. It's not a suggestion. God expects us to enjoy and live well in the world that he has placed us in. Got a couple minutes here. And these are just some applicational thoughts to just kind of leave us chewing on. But I think, and this isn't, again, super original with me, but like some people can fill a lifespan. There's a difference between filling a lifespan and actually living. And so living is not being filled with anxiety, fear, stinginess, negativity, paranoia, isolation, self-centeredness, being overly cautious, etc. And again, this is a cumulative thought from the entire book to this point. But because life is heavy, because life is enigmatic, because of all of the things that he has shown us to this point, Christians should live, people who follow Yahweh, Christians should live differently. We should be characterized by joy. We should be, instead of sadness all the time, or trust instead of anxiety, or generosity in place of stinginess. And there's the opposites of all of these are things that we've mostly talked about already to this point. But again, and I'm talking to the mirror right now, but how often are us as Christians, whether at a church level or a personal level, characterized by joy and peace in the plan God has put for us versus just abject negativity all the time? You just kind of picture the miser in his room, with the windows blanked out and just kind of, just worrying all the time about the facts of life and the world and everything like that. And you're just like, dude, that's not living. And God intended us to live. And as we live for God in the way that he intended, we speak to the glory of God. And that is a witness to a world that is living like this because they have no true hope. As people with hope, this should not be us, but too often it is. You will be called to account. We touched on this one already, but you'll be called to account on how you lived and received blessings from the hand of the Father. This is maybe more for the young people. There is a point of no return, so don't wait for the perfect time. At one point, young people will turn into old, and young people could turn into dead. So if you're sitting on something that you think you should do, you think the Lord has impressed it on your heart, he's given you this passion, he's given you this interest, pull at those strings. Do something about it. Don't just wait, AI is going to replace everything, so should I really be a creative individual? Yeah, still be a creative individual. If that's what God has placed in your heart. The last one I'll leave us with is compare the life that Kohelet gives us in these chapters and in this book, and overlay them with the instruction that Christ gives us in the Sermon on the Mount. Because again, in the Sermon on the Mount, the kingdom ethic that Jesus gave to us is characterized by trust, it's characterized by generosity, it's characterized by paradoxical living. It doesn't make sense that to gain one's life, one should lose it, and so on and so forth. But there's a lot of overlay. I wish we had time to just kind of talk about this. The preacher here, Jesus' teaching echoes these things. Jesus intends us to live this way as well. And that's only found if we're properly grounded in who our Creator is, and we're properly aligned to who our Creator is, and we're living the way that he gave to us to live. So, again, I would love to have some discussion, but the kids are glaring at me from the back row, or the vestibule. But any quick thoughts, maybe 30 seconds or less? We'll close out next week with what we know is coming. Fear God, keep his commandments, and we'll put a bow on Ecclesiastes. But let this be an encouragement. Again, wisdom would say, I can hear all this and say, that's interesting, and forget about it. Or you can really consider how it is supposed to work deep into your heart and life and inform and impact the way we live. Dear Lord, thank you for this word. Lord, thank you for how you have taught me and challenged me, and I hope, God, that it will be a challenge and encouragement to all of us, Lord, that we would live well and not overstress or overthink out of proportion, Lord, and that we would trust you, and our lives could be characterized by peace and contentment that is ultimately found in you. So, God, if we are not feeling that way, if we know that we're not rightly aligned, I pray that your Holy Spirit would guide and convict in our hearts today, Lord, and draw us closer to you. Whether in salvation or sanctification, Lord, that you would be honored. We pray this in your name. Amen.